Welcome to the second intermission. Great game this evening. The panel will be along in just a moment. 32 Thoughts is presented by GMC, a longtime sponsor of the Rangeland Derby in Calgary. And you too, do not get onto Rocky 3. You were incredible in the Jeff Marek radio show this week. Jeff, for headlines, yes. Barry Trotz.
Okay, so Barry Trotz and the Philadelphia Flyers. So to clear things up, so this became a thing online. It became a thing with local reporters in Philadelphia. It became a thing on the podcast. So, Ron, let's put this one to bed. Barry Trotz will meet with the Philadelphia Flyers next week about their coaching vacancy. A couple of things here. One, they want to meet him, obviously, because he's an outstanding coach. But two, he has a lot of divisional knowledge about the Metropolitan, having coached recently the Islanders and before that, the Washington Capitals. One thing to keep in mind, though, with the Philadelphia Flyers coaching search, I don't get the sense that the Philadelphia Flyers are in any hurry here to name a coach. They want to take their time. They want to be thorough, even if that means they may miss a candidate along the way.
Trotz has got a lot of interest. There's no question about that. In addition to Philadelphia, his list, of course, is Winnipeg. It's also believed to include Vegas and Detroit among teams who are expected to interview him. There could be more. Winnipeg, in addition to Trotz, it's believed that they're expected to interview both Scott Arniel and Pascal Vincent, two coaches who do have ties, of course, to Manitoba and the Jets. And Dallas yesterday has a coaching vacancy as Rick Bowness stepped away from the team. Bowness, by the way, is indicated he's not retiring. He'll listen to what else is out there. But one other thing about Dallas to keep an eye on is during the season, they considered a coaching change at the All-Star break. And the person they zeroed in on was Rick Tocchet. And they couldn't make a deal at the time. They couldn't work out the overall situation, the term. But I wonder if that's a name they're going to circle back to.
Okay, staying with the Dallas Stars here, Elliotte. One person to keep in mind here as they begin their coaching search, and Jim Nill certainly has his list. One person to keep in mind here who's on Dallas's radar is former NHLer and former assistant coach with the St. Louis Blues, now with the Windsor Spitfires of the OHL, and that is Mark Savard, the Windsor Spitfires program that he handles right now. One of the top teams in the OHL, one of the top teams in the CHL, currently in the semifinals playing Flint. Lost tonight 4-3, albeit. And he also coaches Wyatt Johnston, who's kind of regarded as the Dallas Stars' top prospect and someone who'll be given every chance to make the Dallas Stars as soon as next season. I don't want to handicap, where Mark Savard fits into this equation, but let's just say that he is very much on Jim Nill's radar. Jim Nill has some business in the offseason as well. Restricted free agent Jake Ottinger, who was outstanding, as we know, in the playoffs. He needs a new contract, as does Jason Robertson. I also believe that Dallas wants to re-sign Roope Hintz. He has one more year remaining on his deal, but I think they want to get that business done early. That might mean moving a body as well. We'll see what happens there, and we should get some more information and clarity on what the future is, if any, for John Klingberg and the Dallas Stars. He's poised to become an unrestricted free agent.
It's great, Jeff. It didn't take long for Brian Rust.
No, Pittsburgh has a lot of UFAs to deal with, and they've got one down. Brian Rust signing tonight, a 6-year deal with an average annual value of $5.125. I think it's almost sawed off right in the middle of what the Penguins wanted to do for an AAV and what Rust was asking for. So it's right around there. Now, one other situation to keep an eye of, the draft. A couple weeks ago, Tom Fitzgerald, the Devils general manager, was asked by a local reporter if he would consider moving the Devils' first-round pick. And he said, as every general manager should, of course, we would do anything that would make us better. Well, since then, the Devils finished second and the number 2 overall pick in the lottery. Does it stay, or do the Devils pull it back? Well, the information we have is that the Devils will still consider it and will still consider the possibility of moving the number 2 overall pick, and are in the process of sometime over the next couple of weeks firming up a list of players that they would consider moving that pick for. So it could be interesting right near the top of the draft. Ottawa has also indicated publicly it will consider moving number 7 as well.